You're listening to the Your Story Within podcast with Dr. Janine Bennett, a writing coach and author with 5 published books to her name and a few more in the works. Through this podcast, Dr. Bennett aims to help listeners tell their story within and shares all the industry secrets of self-publishing and book marketing. And now, here's your host, Dr. Janine Bennett.
Welcome to the Your Story Within podcast. Today, I'm excited to have Dr. Sujata Ives and Sandra Horton with us today on the show to discuss their upcoming book release, Activate Success, Tips, Tools, and Insights to be a Leader in Your Niche. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you, Janine. We're excited to be here.
So glad to have you. I'm so excited. I've been following this journey and I'm so excited about the launch in April. I love your backgrounds. Everybody, you get to see what the book looks like. So, ladies, what have you been doing since our last discussions, which I think was in 2023, the end of the year? Looks like you guys have been really busy.
Yes, go ahead, Sujata, please.
Yes, we've been fast and furiously going through the publication process. We have a wonderful publisher. We had the book, the earlier stages edited by you, Dr. G.
Thank you. Yes, yes.
We appreciate that so very much. And the process is just moving along. And this is our very first podcast about this book. So thank you so much for having us.
Awesome. I'm so glad that I get to be continue to be a part of this journey. As Sujata said, yes, I was blessed to get to edit the book at the very beginning. Wonderful book. I learned a lot, and we're going to talk about the book today. So the book offers leaders a novel approach that builds momentum to embark on their journey through 3 pillars: self-discovery, change readiness, and sustainable impact. And I got to tell you, I had been working in the field of change management, strategic communications, still do leadership, and then, of course, the career focus. And friends, I learned a lot, and I've been doing this for a long time. So I think this is a fantastic book that needs to get out there. And I highly recommend that you snatch that book up as soon as it's released. But let me not tell you more. Let's talk to the authors who we have on here today and get their expertise. So ladies, the first thing I want to talk about is a little bit about the background and the inspiration that led to this book. What inspired you to team up to write Activate Success? And why did you explore the themes of self-discovery, change readiness, and sustainable impact?
Well, Janine, first of all, there aren't many leadership books written by women. So we thought that our gender experience and perspective was much needed in this arena. And secondly, our definition of leadership is novel because it is not solely relegated to leading others, as it is commonly stated in leadership books. So our definition goes further and encompasses 2 views for leadership: that we are all self-leading and need to do it accurately and effectively for leading others. So in this book, we explain that self-leading and leading others can be accomplished through those 3 pillars of self-discovery, change readiness, and sustainable impact. We also give the how to our readers, and the how through awareness, intention, and adaptability. Sandra, please, for more.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks, Janine and Dr. Sujata. What a great opportunity. And I want to reach out to your amazing audience And just, I want you to invite yourself into this opportunity, because I'm sure you've had this experience as well, is being able to connect with someone so deeply that you're like, wow, we share this common values. We share this common vision to inspire people, like the work that we do. So your first question that you asked us, Janine, is how did you come together? Why are you two together creating this in this amazing model? And it's because of those reasons, in that we connect very deeply in terms of empowerment. We're very much aligned with really digging into that self-discovery. It's our personal journeys as well. You know, everyone has, as you said, you captured these stories. Everyone has a beautiful story. And our two stories together kind of paralleled in different ways, in that we self-discovered ourselves. We do this great change management work. We're working with individuals and teams and organizations. And we realize that ultimately our goal is sustainable impact. And so it was a natural kind of organic evolution of us coming together and realizing, wow, we got a lot of experience. We're doing the work. Let's share it. And that's kind of how it organically came to be.
I love that. That's a story within the story.
It is.
I also loved, I know when, like you said, I had the opportunity to go through the book at the early stages. I love the self-discovery part, especially, and the awareness, because every leadership class, if you will, I've gone through or experienced, you know, they touched on things, but they didn't go deep. There was only one program, I will say, that did get pretty close, and that was the Department of Defense Executive Leadership Development Program. And the one thing they said different but similar was know yourself. You can't be a good leader if you don't know yourself. And so I liked how you took it even further with that self-discovery to really guide us on, well, how do you know yourself? You know, what should I be looking for as a leader? You know, when it comes to me personally, you know, we get so attached emotionally to things, and sometimes we miss it. So I loved how you portrayed that in the book, and gave us action steps, really, going forward. Yes.
And thank you, Janine. I was going to say, you know, if I can just add to that piece, and I think this is a key piece of the inner transformation, because, you know, each of us has a story, and I really want to land into this and then turn it over to Sujata, because perhaps this, for your, you know, your viewers, your audience, this may resonate. Like for myself, you know, I lived numb. I lived that corporate lifestyle for 34 years. I was externally focused. I was very much financially motivated, and I lived that corporate lifestyle. But what I realized, that there was a missing piece within me, that really, it just was so empty inside. And until I stopped and began to answer some essential questions about myself to unlock my story. And this is where Sujata and I are very powerful in coming together to help people the how to do this. When I was able to understand the breaking open, the freedom, the inner going within to transform without, to answer who am I was able to release so much of my own story, that I became self-aware. I unlocked many things that had held me back beyond just my early childhood trauma story. And many of these leaders in our world today are so on autopilot. We just need to stop and address and dig within ourselves to understand ourselves. And when I did, it was like this opening. I opened up to become who I could be. And it was going through that journey of self-awareness and discovery deep within me that allowed me to gain the emotional intelligence, to transform, to know how we could move forward, how I could move forward as a leader. And I think today, more than any other time, we as individuals have to connect to our heart, to our mind, to our higher calling and consciousness, meaning our ability to reconstruct our thinking, our ways of being and acting. And so that we offer from our own personal reflections, the how. So Sujata, I wondered if you wanted to add into that.
Yes, we start with you first. Leadership books historically have focused on how to lead other people. So the emphasis was on how to change others. And for myself in the counseling field, you cannot change others. You have to change yourself.
That's right.
Right off the bat, we started with the self-leading piece first, the introspection piece first, before we jumped into the how to lead others effectively piece. And our experiences were so similar, Sandra's and mine, hers through work in Canada and mine through the United States. And so we both were able to bring even those experiences to the table. What's happening in a system, in a nation, for example, Canada, for Sandra, and what's happening at the systemic level. And for me, as a bicultural person, I was born in India and came here with my folks to pursue the American dream. So all our stories are in the book, and I hope that you all enjoy reading our personal journeys. Thank you.
I love it. I love it. And yet, you'd mentioned something, ladies, about starting with you, meaning the leader, you as the leader, I love that you did it in a compassionate way. There was no poking fingers. There was no, calling out someone for their approach. It was just saying, hey, take a step back and let's examine you, to see perhaps, like you said, Sandra, and I have a very similar background. For years, I climbed the corporate ladder and, the awards and the financial gains, that was the ticket, right? And then when you get that, I used to say, I can't wait to get the seat at the table. And then when you get the seat at the table, I remember thinking, I don't like the table so much.
Exactly.
Like, oh, I don't like this, because it actually took me away from people, and I'm a people person. So I loved that you focused the book on that introspection and then guide us to think differently, because you're right. There's no books out there right now that I have seen, and I've seen a lot of leadership books that do that, so I love it. I love it. All right. Next question. So what are some practical steps individuals can take to deepen their self-awareness and lead with authenticity? So I'm jumping around a little bit, I know, but we really touched on the self-discovery and whatnot. And I want to jump a little deeper now.
Yeah, it's such a great question, Dr. Janine. The way that people can deepen that self-awareness, right? That self-discovery, that self-awareness is truly through that introspection, through being silent. There's so much noise that's going on up here. So people really need to introspect and think, why am I thinking the way that I'm thinking? And this takes a little bit of inspection of the person's feelings and the person's values. And in the book, we also jump into faulty thinking. And so faulty thinking to the point of overgeneralizing or all or nothing thinking and cognitive dissonance. So there's evidence in a individual's life, but they need to be open to finding it and willing to accept it so that they can change the behavior. And most people don't change their behavior and find their authentic self until people start leaving them in the workplace and in personal life. So what we're saying is view yourself as the common denominator. You know, wherever you go, there you are. And we offer a chance in this book to create your own practical steps based on who you are, your personality, because your personality doesn't change much between personal life and workplace, vice versa. So these variables are going to come into play when you think about what the practical steps are for you as an individual to deepen that awareness and to lead through authenticity. It's different for everybody. And we get you started through something called activators. This is our special sauce, if you will, in this book. So out of these activators come these practical steps that you can take towards a positive roadmap for yourself. So thank you, Sandra.
Yeah, and Janine, I would just add to what Dr. Sujata was saying is the importance of for us to look at, do we have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset? And even that simple fundamental shift, that awareness of going, oh my gosh, wow, I have perhaps a fixed mindset. And that's, you know, going back to my story, I always kind of go back to the story to make it clear that because I had a fixed mindset growing up, my parents had beautifully allowed me to have that. And until I shifted to a growth mindset, I was so competitive, is what I shared. I was externally focused. I was a perfectionist. All of these things thinking, oh, I can only be this way. But when you reconstruct, when you go within and you answer these essential questions, you start to unpack yourself, unpack these different layers, you realize, hey, wait a second. Wow, growth. I have capacity. I can change. I can do this. I have a choice to reconstruct within my subconscious mind. And within the book, we help the reader to go through that process. It's their journey. It's their choice, but it's powerful, powerful. When you have that aha moment, and Janine, I don't know how many aha moments you have right now, but this is powerful. And for me, this is what leaders need today, is to have those aha moments to say, wow, I can do things differently. I can show up differently, and I can have more emotional intelligence. And so all of these pieces we put into these activators. And if you do the work, I call it the application and learning. Guess what? You will transform not only yourself, but you're going to go easily through the change, and you'll build sustainable impact.
Well, I love a couple of things that you both hit on, but the biggest thing that stood out to me was you put the control back. You know, the person has control again, because like you said, you know, when you're chasing all of those worldly accolades and the recognition and whatnot, you know, you're no longer in control because you're competing with everybody else and you're following whatever everybody else says we have to follow to reach whatever point we need to reach. Yeah. And after a while, it becomes overwhelming and tiring. And I loved of course, I'm lucky because I got to read the book already, but you both just summed it up though when you said you teach us how to think differently and we get the control back so that we can follow our own path, whatever that is, because Sandra's is different than Sujata's and different than mine.
Yeah.
And the way we activate our success, because it's our success, not anybody else's. And so I love that. That's what stood out to me as you were both talking.
You're so correct, because the difference here is that, we all three of us follow these external motivators, right? We're talking about the awards, the pay grades, all of those things. Right. And this book highlights the internal motivators that each individual person has. And you just mentioned something very important that's in the book, which is the locus of control. People feel that they have no say in the workplace when it's directive or directed. Now, I do want to make a slight difference here. I do want to point this out, because I am a military wife. So we make the distinction in the book. Military leadership is an entity all to itself. It has to be the way that it is. It's set up to be the way that it is. And there's little locus of control there. Why? Because our husbands, are fighting for a nation, for peace. And frankly, these guys fight for people that they like, and they fight for people they don't like. There's no room for bias when you're in the military. You have a very important job to do, and they do it very, very well. So we make these distinctions also in the book, is, where does that directive style work versus where it doesn't work, where people need more of a locus of control. So thank you so much.
That's a good point. Good point to make. As a military spouse myself, you're absolutely right. So great additional point to add. All right. Well, let's change it up a little bit and switch gears to change readiness. So let's talk about how individuals cultivate mindset of change readiness in themselves and within their teams or organizations.
Okay. Great question. So now we're going from the individual to now we're talking about the team and the group. And this is very key in the book, because there are three distinct levels that we stress in the book. And that is the individual, the team, the group, and the system, the organization. So cultivation takes awareness, and it takes practice to change existing habits. It takes doing something over and over again. It takes the willingness to feel the discomfort, to turn that into a more comfortable stance. So once the person has made the decision to stop resisting and has done the good work, right? What do we mean by good work? The self-discovery, the introspection, and so forth. Life will become much easier and much more enjoyable in a group or team setting. So you understand then, when the individual enters that team or that group is also going to have to go through team discovery, a sort of self-discovery for the whole team, because the individual has certain values that they bring to the team setting. And so then we expanded to say, well, what does the team value? Because the team also has certain values so that they can, work towards task completion. And by the way, the system also, then that's the third piece, also values something. These can all be different. That's why it's imperative to bring unity and collaboration through mission and vision statements, because the team is comprised of all of diverse group of individuals, but the common denominator in a team is always the organizational mission and vision statement. So you might, when you are hired, you might look around and say, oh my goodness, I don't have anything in common with my teammates. And hey, that's fine, because what binds you together is the workplace mission and vision that you are collectively and cooperatively working towards. Thank you, Sandra.
Thanks, Sujata. I think that's amazing and a wealth of knowledge. And this is the beautiful connection that Sujata and I have. And so Sujata takes it down a certain way, and then I kind of pop over here to a different way. So one of the things that I have found really, really impactful, which I love having in the book, is the understanding as a leader. One of the questions you asked, Janine, was the mindset for change readiness. And so as a leader, the first thing is, and Sujata touched on this excellently, is about the awareness of bias. It's first of all, we have to stop, we have to observe, we have to reflect about how am I showing up? What is the impact of whatever change I want to bring? So whether it's a small scale change, a localized team change, or an enterprise-wide change, those are different levels of change readiness and preparedness that a leader has to look at. But the essential piece here is yourself. So to cultivate a mindset that has the capacity, because again, it's about capacity and about skills. It's about being open. It's about having that right readiness to say, how am I looking at things? What is the languaging of what I'm speaking? How is that landing for someone else? As a certified change management practitioner, this is a key piece and something that I think some leaders may roll quickly through, which I think we need to just stop for that moment to say, how am I processing this? Have I taken into consideration that individual's personal change readiness, from looking at what I love, which is the awareness, how ready is that individual I'm impacting? How available are they? Are they ready? Do they have the awareness about the change? I mean, these are all key elements that we talk about that are standard across change management, but you asked about the mindset. So having an open, mindset, being able to engage with people, checking in with their readiness. Have they had multiple changes impacting them? Are they part of that equation? Because whatever you send out, you're going to get back in from those employees that you're working with. So I think the openness to receive information, to check in, to evaluate, to measure your impact. But it's, again, we go back to that application and learning. We have the opportunity now to be able to try and use different leadership styles. And I think in the change management process, however that size of the change is, our mindset must always be, what is the right choice now? What kind of leadership style will best fit this individual person to meet people where they're at? So just wanted to add a little bit of that kind of flavor to what Sujata was saying.
Yes. I like the language you used, opportunity, opportunity for the change, both personally and professionally. And I think that's so important. I think you need both of them, the personal and the professional change, for it to really work. Would you agree?
Yes,
Right?
100%. Because, I'm sure you've had your own experience trying to change, whether it's your family or a husband situation. Does it really work? You have to kind of understand and build that rapport first and meet people where they're at, understand like even your tonality, like how are you showing up in this present moment? And I want to for leaders today, conscious leadership is fundamental for us to be able to create that long-term sustainable impact that we want to see. So I kind of looping it back into that conscious leadership style, being present in the moment, I think is key.
All right. Anything else to add, Sujata, before I switch gears again?
I think Sandra, has brought her perspective beautifully. And that mindset, I think post-pandemic especially has to change. And I know at the onset of the vaccine and so forth that people are saying that the virus is gone and that, it's over, the pandemic is over. And that very well might be true. But the ramifications of a global crisis, I think, is going to be with us for several more years. So the shift needs to be in the mindset of what do the people want? Yeah.
Absolutely. A little bit off topic, but on topic. I see it as a career professional. I see it a lot with the remote work environment. So many people, as a result of the pandemic, wanted to stay in that remote environment. And now we're starting to see a little bit of a shift where it was good for the year and a half, say, after the pandemic. But now employers are wanting to shift back again a little bit. So there's this 50-50, some want it, some don't want it. Some remote workers are feeling a little bit disengaged or not getting recognized because out of sight, out of mind, right? So there's some of that stuff going on. Again, a little bit off topic. Sorry, friends.
No, it's beautiful though, Janine. I got to jump in there because I think it's absolutely critical. We speak about it, in the book, and I'm helping lead transformation in virtual healthcare right now, and it's a hybrid-based role. So I'm working with in-person clinical staff as well as hybrid individuals, and I think the key piece here, and we go back to the opportunity, is to build your capacity and your skill set of being able to understand what new leadership style is relevant and applicable in that moment. So the engagement piece you talked about, Janine, is critical. So if you really are strong and you know who you are and where you're going, how you want to get there and how you want to stay there, guess what? You're grounded in who you are. You can apply these different ways so that you can engage people in that appropriate manner that works for them. Every individual is so unique. And I think, quickly going to the teams and organizations, there has to be new measurements, new performance matrix brought in that has more of this agility, this resiliency that has been demanded by people, because individuals are not the same as they were pre-pandemic. And I think that's where we are coming from, is the ability to level set, to restart, to go within, to self-discover, get very clear, and then expand and grow your leadership so you can activate success through these activators.
Absolutely. Well, good. I'm glad I didn't derail us then.
Nope,
You
not
took
at
us
all.
back.
It was brilliant. I love it. It's an important topic. It's very important, especially with different generations, Janine. Sujata, I think this is an important point about the different generations and what we're bringing in. So I'm wondering if you wanted to just quickly add to that piece.
Sure. So just as personality is a construct that we're bringing in the book, we also talk about the generational differences in that the younger generations, what we've noticed is that they pivoted, reset so quickly into the virtual setting because they're so used to being on the different media forums that it wasn't hard for them. It just wasn't difficult. Whereas our experience with some of the latter generations, they actually had to be taught how to navigate some of these virtual forums. So there was incredible change at different levels, not only individuals, teams, organization, but also within the individual subgroups. And yes, and what we found actually was that the younger generations, the Alpha, Generation X, and so forth, were much more bold in voicing their concerns. Their values shifted. And so they are not shy to speak up. They're not shy to quit. They'll go somewhere else where their values are being met. And so, just like I was saying before, the ramifications of this global virus will stay with us. I think it's going to take like a 5-year span before we can kind of get to the new normal, whatever that's going to be. But, this great resignation, the loud quitting, the quiet quitting, the quit and stay, and all kinds of versions of things. But it's the younger generations are not shy to say to their leaders, I have to take care of my aging parents.
Right.
I have a pet. 1 million pets were purchased during COVID for companionship, for belongingness, because that's innate within human beings. Nobody wants to sequester by themselves. A nice dog, a nice little cat would be just great and warm and fuzzy, right? So these values have changed, and in our generation, we were talking previously, it was about those external motivators. And what we're finding here with the Alpha generation is their values have shifted to internal motivators, and they're willing to live with their aging parents and take care of them, the pets that they love so much, for less pay and less status. So there you go.
They're definitely having children, I'll tell you. In their, my oldest daughter is almost 40. Then I have a, mid-30s and a 20-year-old. The mindsets of all three of them have definitely changed since the pandemic. And as you said, it's going to be interesting to see where we fall out with this new normal when we eventually get what is the new normal, right? But I have very, we'll just say, philosophical conversations with my 20-year-old about how he sees life now. And it kind of goes to what you're saying. He puts more value on the things that I didn't value in the past.
Yes.
Going back to, like I said, I was trying to climb that ladder and trying to make the money and trying to do all that, all those things that the world says we need to do. And then now, middle-aged, I'm looking at life thinking, gosh, if I could do it over again, I'd do things differently. Well, now they have this perspective that they're not going to wait until they're middle-aged. They're going to do things differently now. So it's interesting to see. And I got to tell you, I'm shifting my thinking. It's taking a little bit of time. But it's definitely shifting. It's just different. And again, I that's one of the things I loved about the book. And even my interactions with both of you lovely ladies is you got me to think a little bit differently too, so I'm a work in progress.
I think we all are in a lovely, grand way.
There you go. All right, let's shift gears now and talk about that sustainable impact piece. So can you provide examples of sustainable leadership practices that promote long-term success?
Yes. sustainability to us means sustaining the good. We've talked about the change readiness piece and the self-discovery piece, which is so important for change. But now the sustainable piece is if we've changed our mindsets into something valuable, then let's keep that going. Let's eradicate those older, non-functional business models that just are not relevant. They're dusty. So we need new models, more sustainable models. And I'll tell you, a good example is Twitter. Twitter company decided during the pandemic that they were going to sell all their buildings. They figured out, hey, people can get their work done virtually. So Twitter is now an all virtual company. The CEO there figured out very early, his assessment and his data showed him, look, we don't care how you get your work done, as long as it's done through quality and through deadlines. That's all we care about. Is there measurable progress? And they don't regret that decision at all. The second example that I want to highlight is that from the United Nations, the Sustainable Development Goals 2030 that the Secretary General has put out there for individuals, teams, and organizations. Those goals contain poverty, zero hunger, clean water, gender equity, equality, job equality, peaceful communities, partnerships. Every niche can adapt one of those sustainable goals into what they currently do. So we want people to look at the big picture. And when we talk about generations, is there going to be clean water for them, for future generations? Are they going to be hungry? Is there enough food? All of these things are their basic needs going to be met? So we want people to consider these sustainable development goals in what they do and how they can integrate these into what they do. And the third piece is, what kind of leaders do you want to sustain? What kind of leaders do you want for the future? And again, that ties back to those dusty models that no longer serve us. We have to create new models that work for a new generation and that are sustainable. So many companies bring forth a model, but one model does not fit all. It's not one size fits all world. And especially with interculturalism here, working with different nations and outsourcing and so forth, it's imperative to consider different models, because one model just doesn't work in all nations. So thank you so much, Sandra.
Thank you, Sujata. I always love listening to Sujata, and the richness in what you offer is always like, I just lean in. I love it.
I agree.
Right? I just want to honor that. And so a couple things that I think is adding to what Sujata just shared is the importance, because you asked for examples, like what's working out there, what may work better, opportunities. So I'm a big, as you hear, possibilities and opportunities. So for reflection, for those who are listening today, is first of all, is to look at your current models. Get current, like what's working, what isn't working, and then have the opportunity to look at yourself and your leadership style. Knowing yourself, we go back to the self-discovery, the change readiness, know yourself, and then invite yourself into what we have found working very well, especially across different generations, different industries, is the importance, Sujata touched on interculturalism, but also looking at collaboration, unity, new ways of building the connection, the engagement, whether it's hybrid, like virtual options. These are all new ways of building sustainable impact. Because without what? Connection, what do you have? You just have different people doing different things, working in silos. And as we shared earlier, these are outdated models. So we have to look at things different. We have to align with SDG goals to say, okay, as a conscious leader, I'm going to go there for a moment. As a conscious leader, how can I build that we versus an I? How can I build the, up, kind of the feedback up from the people, from my frontline workers? Do I have an open door policy? These ways of how we've defined how we act, like how we're thinking, what we're feeling and expressing, these have to change. And so I think we are absolutely seeing the push, the cadence is increasing to shift to more, I have to understand you more clearly. I have to understand and respect the norms that you're bringing within like teams. As an example, if you have a diverse group of individuals, you're going to have a different, unique set of norms. So how open are you to receive, to accept, to invite, to engage the learning that is inherent in building, I think, sustainable impact, which is ingraining a learning organization? We as individuals have to always be the opportunity, and I'm mindful of the words I'm using there, open. We started at the very beginning saying, what's important? It's a growth mindset, and being open to perspectives with humility, with gratitude, looking at the goodness that is within each individual that you're engaging with, and in the culture that you're building, I think is for sustainable impact is key right now. So inviting everyone onto the table, right? Especially for women and others in that group. How are you doing that? Are you, we talk about breaking the glass ceiling. Well, there's such a gap between the top to the bottom. We need to re-challenge status quo on the systems that we have in place. And I think that's where we can build sustainable impact, understand ourselves, become more conscious, create new pathways of change, invite people to come with us, meet them where they're at, invite them with this wonderful, inspirational shared vision that's bigger than just us, to create the change we want to see in the world, to connect new strategic alliances. That's the practices that I think will help us to move forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great responses, ladies. All right. I have two more questions for you. One revolves around practical application, and the other one I want to talk a little bit about future outlook. So, can you share a success story of someone who's applied the principles outlined in your book and experienced some of that significant personal and professional growth?
Absolutely. We have so many case studies that we would love to share with you. So along with our book, there is a workbook. It's not as big as the book, but we have brought our real life case studies in this workbook. We give you case studies at the individual level, at the team level, and at the organizational level. So when people use this 3-pillar model, when they have used this 3-pillar model, they expand their horizons internally and externally. Life becomes much more manageable for them. It becomes much more enjoyable for them. They don't have the Monday morning blues. They're actually looking forward to driving to work, to turning on Zoom, because they know who they are. They bring their authentic selves to the table. People get it. Leaders don't have to drum this into them. They get it. That you have the power to hire and fire me. I get it. I don't want that crammed down my throat.
Right.
Let's now, that's a given. So let's now work together. How can, we help each other? So our case studies show that the ego-centered case study, the ego-centered leader needs to be heavy on the self-discovery. The leader over here that uses a co-elevation style, I mean, he's rocking it. He's the leader that's really succeeding post-pandemic, because co-elevation leaders want collaboration, cooperation. They're good communicators, and these are all great activators for success at the individual team and at the systemic levels. So earlier, Dr. Janine, you brought up a point, and I just loved that you brought this up, that you're working so hard to get to the table, and you get to the table and then you hate it. Like, wait a minute, this table is taking me away from people. And that was such a great point, because our case studies again show that the people, the leaders who are people-centered, are highly successful, versus the leaders, the ego-centered leader, for example, who's just, out for himself, in other words, or lacks empathy. And so these are, well, I guess you could call them deactivators, right? Because they don't activate success for anybody. So, and lastly, I want to say that the success case studies that we have, successful ones, are inclusive leaders.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Question. I want to touch on something you said. You said there's a workbook. So do they get the book? How do they get the workbook?
Yes. So what's going to happen is after the launch of the book and the reviews, we'll go ahead and sell that. People will have a choice, because choices are always great. So you can either purchase them solitarily, which we don't recommend, because that workbook goes right with the book.
Okay.
So there'll be choices for bundling. There'll be choices for
awesome.
Coming, lots of things coming up.
Oh, this is exciting. So we get a book and a workbook. All right. I always love that. I love bundles.
Exactly.
Would you like to add anything to what Sujata said, or are you guys ready for the future outlook question?
Yeah, you know what, Ginny, again, just for your viewers, I think that the most greatest moments that we've been able to experience is just to see the opportunity for people to say, yes, I'm committing to my own personal growth. And with Activate Success, you take it as you need to take it. Like if you need to go slow in certain sections, or if you need to revisit certain sections, that's the gift of the book. This is you're going to go on your own journey. And at the end of it, you will be transformed. You're going to be able to shift. You'll be able to know yourself and then kind of go back, revisit all these things. I just wanted to add that to it. It's different unique book. It combines this beautiful opportunity of empirical evidence where we've expanded on many, many theories. With our own new theories, we have our own assessment tools, and we invite the reader to come on that journey at their pace. And it's one of those books, we all have books right over to our side here that we're like, I'm dealing with this difficult situation. I have some kind of crucial conversations. How could I take what I know about myself today and go, would a pace setter work right now? Probably not. Would some element of maybe, a quiet leader, can I invite, reflection and observation? So we can go to the book and have some new ideas. And one thing, last piece, Janine, is in each of the chapters, we have it so wonderfully laid out. I like easy and, with gratitude, all those things. At the end, we go through like a process. There's change management impacts. Like you can look at these things, go, I can apply that. And then for this person who's wanting to really grow, we have questions for them. It's your turn. So you go through these things, you start to do the work yourself. And that to me is when we see more and more successes, it's just going to be amazing. So I wanted to wrap up with that.
Love it. All right. We have 5 minutes left in the show. So I want to get this question out.
Yep.
How do you envision the future of leadership evolving, particularly in terms of that self-discovery and sustainable impact you talked about? We already know there's change and that we have to deal with. But how do you feel like it's going to evolve? You kind of touched on it throughout the episode, but as a wrap up, what do you think?
Well, when we envision the future, we want the future to be inclusive. And my bias here is I'm a woman that comes from two cultures. So I'm envisioning a future where there are more female leaders and those that are bicultural also. We have such a huge population of first generation Americans, second generations who were born here, but still live in their homes with two cultures. The loyalty to their own cultural values, their traditions, their norms, their language, they're speaking 2 languages, 3 languages, even more. But we really want to see more female leaders in all niches, and especially the C-suite. And I want to point out to the C-suite leaders that the Fortune 500 has more cultural leaders versus North American leaders. And I attribute that to values, personal values, team values, and adhering to organizational missions and visions that include values. So I envision a future where missions and visions of organizations are going to be tweaked to include values. And the greatest value for me in moving forward and in wrapping this up is empathy. Thank you.
Awesome. That was so well said. Beautiful, Sujata. I'm like, okay, in the next minute, I have less than a minute. So I'm gonna wrap it up with some gratitude. The gratitude to you, Dr. Janine and Dr. Sujata Ives, that things are purposeful. We have the opportunity today to truly be our best, most authentic self, to lead from our heart, connected to our mind, to really a bigger purpose in life. So I envision a future where there is more conscious leaders. One of my big hairy goals is to, with Sujata, is to really touch like millions of lives, to help shift and change, offer this invitation to transform, to really know yourself, live with this amazing opportunity that you have, which is your life. Make it filled with gratitude, with opportunities, not be stuck in the past, not anxious about your future, but living truly authentic as a conscious leader, because you show up every single day. So why not show up with integrity, with authenticity, with an openness to connect, to transform not only yourself, but teams, organizations, so that we are all one, we're connected, and we're doing good work across the globe. And I do feel that there is a movement with the different younger generations to be more conscious leaders. And I see that. So thank you, Dr. Janine. Thank you, Dr. Sujata.
Thank you, ladies, for being on the show. One quick thing, where can they find the book in April?
Wonderful. Go ahead, Sujata.
Yeah, it's going to be on the great, wonderful Amazon. That's where they can find the book.
Okay.
And Barnes and Noble. And we have a website, www.activate-success.com. So you can go there, learn a little bit more. You can click on the easy links and take you right over to Amazon.
Perfect.
Yeah. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, again, ladies, thank you so much. Thank you for helping us all activate success. I'm excited about this book launch and the lives you're going to touch with this. And I'll be cheering you both on the entire journey. So thank you again for coming on the show. Friends, you don't want to miss it. Activate Success coming in April.